Right now, as you watch this video, someone is buying your groceries. Someone owns the mall you shop at. Someone built the highway you drive on. Someone controls the bank where your money sits. And here's the crazy part, it might all be the same family. In the Philippines, one of the most powerful economies in Southeast Asia, a small group of ultra-rich families control nearly everything you touch, eat, drink, and spend money on. And most people have absolutely no idea. We're talking about a family so powerful that when their business sneezes, the entire Philippine economy catches a cold. Here are the 3 things that will shock you by the end of this video. Number 1. The amount of the Philippine economy that just one family controls will make your jaw drop. Number 2. How this family quietly took over entire industries while the public was looking the other way. And number 3. The secret connection between this family's rise and the most controversial political moments in Philippine history. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is backed by government filings, business records, and investigative reports. But the truth behind this will shock you. So buckle up, because once you see how deep this goes, you will never look at a shopping mall or a can of beer the same way again. Let me show you exactly how this happened. To understand what's really going on in the Philippines, you need to know a little bit about the country first. The Philippines has over 115 million people. It is one of the fastest growing economies in Asia. And for decades, it has had a very unique problem, one that economists, journalists, and even presidents have talked about openly. It's called oligarchy. Oligarchy is a big word, but the idea is simple. Instead of hundreds of companies competing for business like in a normal free market, just a handful of super-rich families own and control most of the major industries. Think about it this way. Imagine if just 5 families in your city owned all the grocery stores, all the gas stations, all the hospitals, and all the banks. Nobody else could compete. If you wanted food, medicine, or money, you had to go through them. That's basically what's happened in the Philippines. And it didn't happen by accident. It was built piece by piece over more than 100 years. There are several powerful families in the Philippines. You may have heard of the Ayalas, the Sis, the Gokongwais, the Tans. Each of them controls billions of dollars in assets. But there is one family that stands above all the others. A family whose name appears on beer bottles, airline tickets, tobacco products, banking apps, and even government contracts. A family that has survived every political storm, every economic crash, and every regime change the Philippines has ever seen. That family is the Lucio Tan family. And this is where things start to get really interesting. Because the story of Lucio Tan is not just a business story. It's a story of survival, secrecy, political connections, and one man's obsession with building an empire so large that no one, not even the government, could ever touch him. Let's start from the very beginning. Lucio Tan was not born rich. He wasn't born in Manila. He wasn't born in a mansion. He wasn't born with any connections. He was born in Fujian Province, China, in 1934. His family was poor, and when he was still a child, they moved to the Philippines, hoping for a better life, like millions of immigrants before them. Young Lucio grew up in poverty. He worked odd jobs. He struggled. But even as a boy, people who knew him said he had one thing that set him apart: a mind for money. He watched carefully. He learned fast. And he spotted opportunities that other people walked right past. After working in the tobacco industry as a young man, Lucio Tan did something bold. In 1966, with very little money and almost no connections, he founded his own tobacco company, Fortune Tobacco Corporation. Tobacco seems like a strange place to start an empire. But in the Philippines in the 1960s, tobacco was gold. Millions of Filipinos smoked, and the market was wide open. But here's the first shocking part of the story. Fortune Tobacco didn't just grow slowly, like most small businesses. It exploded. Within just a few years, Fortune Tobacco became the largest cigarette manufacturer in the Philippines. It crushed its competition, and it did so in a way that many of its competitors said was not entirely fair. According to investigative reports and court documents from the Bureau of Internal Revenue, Fortune Tobacco was accused of massive tax evasion, allegedly underpaying billions of pesos in tobacco taxes over many years. The government tried to go after them. The BIR filed cases. Investigators looked into the books. But somehow nothing stuck. Cases were dropped. Charges were reduced. And Fortune Tobacco kept growing. How was this possible? The answer brings us to one of the most powerful and controversial names in Philippine political history.
Ferdinand Marcos.
During the Marcos dictatorship, which lasted from 1972 to 1986, Lucio Tan reportedly became a close personal ally of the Marcos regime. According to multiple investigative journalists and historians, Tan was one of the so-called Marcos cronies, a group of businessmen who received special treatment, government contracts, and protection in exchange for their loyalty and financial support of the Marcos family. This protection was worth billions. Under the Marcos era, Fortune Tobacco didn't just survive, it was shielded from competition. While other businesses struggled under Marcos's authoritarian rule, Lucio Tan's empire grew bigger and bigger. And this set the stage for everything that came next. Here's a number that will put this in perspective. By the 1980s, Fortune Tobacco controlled roughly 65 to 70% of the entire Philippine cigarette market. Not 10%, not 30%. Nearly 70% of every cigarette smoked in the Philippines was made by one man's company. That kind of market dominance gives you power. Real power. The kind of power that goes far beyond business. It gives you the ability to employ tens of thousands of workers, which means politicians need your support. It gives you the cash to invest in anything you want, which means you can expand into any industry. And it gives you the connections to survive political changes, which is exactly what Lucio Tan did when the Marcos era ended. But if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this. In 1986, something happened that nobody expected. The Filipino people rose up. The EDSA People Power Revolution overthrew Ferdinand Marcos and sent him fleeing into exile. It was one of the most remarkable moments in modern history. Millions of ordinary Filipinos took to the streets and peacefully ended a dictatorship. It was a new dawn for the Philippines. And most of Marcos's closest allies? They were finished. Their businesses were seized. Their assets were frozen. Their reputations were destroyed. But Lucio Tan?
Lucio Tan survived.
Not only did he survive, he thrived in the post-Marcos era. How? This is where the story gets truly extraordinary. First, Tan was strategic. He had spread his money and influence so widely that even as the new government investigated him, pulling on one thread risked tangling up the entire Philippine economy. He employed too many people. He owed too many favors. He was, in the words of one Filipino economist, too big to punish. Second, Tan showed an almost supernatural ability to make friends with whoever was in power, regardless of their political party or ideology. While the Presidential Commission on Good Government was supposedly investigating Marcos's cronies, including ING Tan, Lucio Tan quietly built new relationships with the new administrations. He cultivated friendships with Presidents Corazon Aquino, Fidel Ramos, Joseph Estrada, and Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, leaders with completely different backgrounds and political views. Each one, in different ways, allowed Lucio Tan to keep building. But here's where his genius or ruthlessness, depending on how you look at it, really shows. In 1990, Lucio Tan acquired Allied Banking Corporation. In 1995, he took control of Philippine National Bank, one of the oldest and most important banks in the country. Let that sink in for a moment. A man who started with a tobacco factory now controlled one of the Philippines' most important national banks. And then, in what is perhaps the single most audacious business move in Philippine corporate history, Lucio Tan bought Philippine Airlines. Yes, the national flag carrier of the Philippines. In 1995, Tan acquired a majority stake in PAL, the airline that represented the Philippines to the entire world. The plane that flew the Filipino flag across Asia, America, and Europe now belonged to a man who started out making cigarettes. For comparison, imagine if one person in the United States bought the entire tobacco industry, then bought Bank of America, and then bought United Airlines. That is the scale of what Lucio Tan achieved. But, and this is critical, none of this happened in a vacuum. The acquisition of PAL came after years of political maneuvering, lobbying, and what critics called outright favoritism from the government. Multiple business analysts and journalists noted at the time that the terms under which Tan acquired PAL were suspiciously favorable, that the deal was structured in ways that benefited Tan far more than the government or the Philippine public. And the tax issues? They never really went away. the BIR's long-running case against Fortune Tobacco, which at one point involved alleged unpaid taxes worth an estimated 25 billion pesos, dragged on for decades through the Philippine court system. Appeals, motions, delays. Critics said the legal system was being used as a shield. And then there was Joseph Estrada. President Joseph Erap Estrada was one of Lucio Tan's most openly acknowledged close friends. During the Estrada administration from 1998 to 2001, Tan's businesses reportedly flourished under particularly friendly government policies. When Estrada was later impeached and removed from office amid corruption allegations, investigators uncovered a web of financial dealings involving top businessmen and politicians. Lucio Tan's name appeared in those investigations. And yet, once again, he survived. His businesses continued operating. His empire continued growing. And the Philippine government never fully succeeded in dismantling what he had built. This brings us to the most shocking discovery of all. By the 2000s, Lucio Tan had built something the Philippines had never really seen before. Not just a company, a corporate ecosystem. Here is what the Lucio Tan Group controls today. Pay close attention because the list is staggering. Tobacco. Fortune Tobacco, still one of the dominant cigarette brands in the country. Banking. Philippine National Bank, one of the top 10 banks in the Philippines. Aviation. Philippine Airlines, the national flag carrier. Real estate. Eaton Properties, developing condominiums and commercial centers. Distilled spirits. Tanduay Distillers, the maker of Tanduay rum, which has been named the world's best-selling rum for multiple years in a row. Not just Asia, the entire world. Education. University of the East and Far Eastern University, shaping hundreds of thousands of Filipino students every year. Take a step back. From the moment a Filipino wakes up to when they go to sleep, they're probably interacting with a Lucio Tan business. They bank at PNB. Their kids study at a Lucio Tan university. They fly PAL. They drink Tanduay. Someone nearby probably smokes a Fortune cigarette. Here's the number that reveals the scale of this empire. According to business analysts and public financial filings, the combined assets of the Lucio Tan Group are estimated at well over $5 billion. Some estimates push that number even higher. His net worth has placed him consistently among the top 3 richest people in the Philippines. But here's the revelation that changes everything. It's not just the money, it's the structure. The Lucio Tan empire is built like a web, dozens of interconnected companies, trusts, and subsidiaries, some operating under names you'd never connect to him. This structure makes it almost impossible to fully regulate or break up. When the government goes after one part, the rest keeps operating. It's a machine designed for one purpose: survival and expansion. And the man at the center stayed in the shadows the whole time. Lucio Tan is famously private. He rarely gives interviews. He lets his businesses speak for him. This model, one family, multiple industries, political connections, legal complexity, isn't unique to the Philippines. It exists across Southeast Asia, Latin America, and even in subtler forms in Western countries. So what does this mean for us today? The concentration of economic power in a few families has real consequences. Consequence 1. Higher prices. When one company dominates an industry, it doesn't have to compete on price. Economists have long argued this keeps prices artificially high in banking and air travel. Consequence 2. Fewer jobs and lower wages. When companies don't compete for workers, workers lose bargaining power. They have to accept what they're given. Consequence 3. Political capture. When businesses get powerful enough, they influence the very governments meant to regulate them. A 2019 study found members of powerful business families held seats in Congress and significant influence over regulatory agencies. When regulators are friendly with the regulated, the public loses. So what is the government doing about it? There's reason for hope. The Philippine Competition Commission was established in 2016 to enforce anti-monopoly laws, and it has blocked some deals. Even Philippine Airlines faced real trouble, filing for bankruptcy in 2021 during the pandemic before restructuring in 2022. Even this empire isn't invincible. But through it all, the Lucio Tan family retained control of PAL. The empire bent, but it didn't break. That tells us something important. Entrenched economic power is remarkably resilient. Dismantling it requires political will, real regulation, and an informed public. Which brings us to you. You may not be able to break up a conglomerate, but you can vote for leaders who support real competition, support small businesses, and ask questions. Before we wrap up, one final thing. Remember,
Tanduay Rum.
it is verified fact the best-selling rum brand on the planet. 4 years running, it has outsold Bacardi, Captain Morgan, and Havana Club combined sales worldwide. A rum brand from the Philippines, owned by a family that started in tobacco, became a global giant most people outside the country have never heard of. It operates in the shadows at home and goes unnoticed on the world stage. But it is very real. So let's bring it together. Lucio Tan didn't take over the Philippines through some shadowy conspiracy. He built his empire through genuine business instinct, extraordinary timing, uncomfortable political connections, and a corporate structure almost impossible to dismantle. He started as a poor immigrant child with nothing. He spotted opportunity in tobacco. He allied with one of history's most controversial rulers, and survived that ruler's fall when almost no one else did. He expanded into banking, aviation, real estate, spirits, and education, building an empire that touches over 100 million Filipinos every day. And along the way, he sold more rum than anyone else on earth. Is that genius?
Corruption?
Probably all three. At the start of this video, I told you someone was buying your groceries, owning your mall, building your highways, holding your bank account. Now you know who that someone might be. Next time you board a Philippine Airlines flight, drink Tanduay, or walk into a PNB branch, you'll know you're not just a customer. You're a thread in a web one family spent 50 years building. If this opened your eyes, hit like. It helps more people find this story. Subscribe if you want more hidden power structures uncovered. Drop a comment, did you know about Lucio Tan before this? Next video, another family in Southeast Asia, even more hidden, possibly even more powerful. You don't want to miss it. See you there.